We can count on three things in this life: death, taxes, and playoff drivers having major issues in the first round of the playoffs. Count in the fact that we're at Atlanta and an overtime restart, and you have a recipe for disaster, chaos, and fun. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, my name is Taylor Kitchen and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line, where we do motorsports media your way, talking about NASCAR literally all the time, and now we're talking about Atlanta. Going into this race, it looked like it was going to be a Penske weekend from qualifying. Every single one of their cars qualified within the top 10 or the top 5. And with their history at this track, you kind of just had a feeling. Ryan Blaney won stage 1. Austin Cindric dominated a lot of this race, leading 92 laps, getting the stage 2 win. Unfortunately for things kind of went south for those drivers, but they were able to recover for a top 10 finish. At the start of stage 3, a rough pit stop for Austin Cindric cost him valuable spots on the track. Wasn't able to get back into contention to maybe win the race, but then of course was able to finish in that 10th position. For Ryan Blaney, got involved in a wreck with Chris Buescher, who just got loose, lost the car, got into Blaney got into Truex. There was a lot of tape and bear bond on the car, but luckily for Blaney, he was able to wheel it in to a 3rd place finish. But those aren't the Penske drivers I want to talk about. That's not the one. Joey Logano. When it's all said and done, the driver that raced in Bandoleros and legend cars growing up at Atlanta Motor Speedway was your winner of the Quaker State 400, locking himself into the round of 12. All the Penske cars were in top tier condition going into this race, and what really helped them was that overtime restart where Ryan Blaney gave Joey Logano, who was leading that bottom line, a fantastic push on that overtime restart. On that top line, what also helped them was Daniel Suarez was leading, Ross Chastain was behind, and Chastain just lost connection with the back of the 99's bumper, giving Joey Logano the edge that he needed to get the win. This race also came down to fuel strategy as well, something that's very synonymous with that 22 team this year, looking back to Nashville, where literally he ran out of gas at the start-finish line to end the race. So pretty cool to see that that's the trend we're going on this year. Probably a scary trend for the crew chief and the 22 team, but nevertheless, they're making it work. So a great start to the playoffs for that 22 team. And in case you didn't know this stat, Joey Logano and even numbers go hand in hand. Since 2014, Joey Logano has made the championship for every even-numbered year, and he's won his championships in even-numbered years 2018 and 2022. So is 2024 his year? I don't know. I'd like to say yes, because it fits the stats, and if you're a stats person like me, that makes sense. But we also know with this playoff format, what makes sense will ultimately probably not make sense, and what's predictable will turn into the unpredictable. It's no lie. The first half of the season for Joey Logano was tough. He had that one win, which was awesome, but they weren't really a championship contending team. Of course, with this playoff system, you go into those final 10 races and you just heat up and you do everything right and you're consistent and you have a championship regardless of your first half of the year. For Joey Logano, it looks like that could be the case, especially with how these tracks line up for that 22 car. It's looking really good, especially that round of 8. So could Joey Logano be a 3-time NASCAR Cup Series champion at the end of this year? You never know. I'd say chances are looking pretty good considering history, stats, and the tracks that we have. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So we were talking about recovery for those Penske drivers and an excellent race overall by all of them. So they recovered. There was a lot of drivers that weren't able to recover, especially in that overtime restart where things were looking good for some drivers and then it instantly went away. Coming to the line, Chase Elliott hit the back bumper of Ross Chastain. It caused cars to pile up, stack up, and then we had a massive wreck. And unfortunately, there were some other playoff drivers involved in this, notably Denny Hamlin, who ran a very conservative race, not capturing any stage points at all during the Quaker State 400, trying to avoid the wrecks, knowing that they could potentially go for the win. But unfortunately, as we see here, that wasn't going to happen, and that was not the case with him finishing in that 24th position. Harrison Burton, an underdog going into the playoffs, was also involved in that incident, finished in that 34th position. So unfortunate issues for those two drivers, but the issues didn't stop there for the playoff contenders. We had drivers that had to start the race to the rear of the field. Denny Hamlin, again, Martin Truex Jr., Ty Gibbs. They had to fix a plug wire in the cars, and luckily they found this out before the race, with Denny Hamlin having issues during qualifying with this, and they were able to go out and contend. Ty Gibbs close to a win. Unfortunately, though, as that overtime restart started, and even beforehand, his car started to fade a little bit. And Martin Truex Jr., you have this issue. You had a pit road violation, and then you have that wreck that he was involved in, and it just was not the race that the 19 team needed at all. And then let's talk about the driver that was seeded first going into the playoffs, Kyle Larson, and then Chase Briscoe, who had the Cinderella story at Darlington, winning that race to get himself into the playoffs. Both of those drivers out of the race early. Close to the end of stage 1, Kyle Larson's car just snapped on him. He thought that maybe it was a tire issue or something of the sort. He still wasn't quite sure, but it snapped on him. He went up and into the wall, and then Chase Briscoe went nose first into the side of the number 5. Both cars did not finish this race. Very unfortunate there. I know so many people on social media, including myself, had Chase Briscoe as a potential spoiler for these playoffs, a driver that we didn't think could make it past the first round going deep into the playoffs. And unfortunately, with him being involved in that incident, that puts him in a really tough points position going into Watkins Glen. And we'll look at the points in a second, but for now, let's look at your top 10 finishing positions so we can understand at least why the points shook out the way they did, of course. First, Joey Logano. Second, Daniel Suarez, and he was in contention again to win this race, trying to go back-to-back at Atlanta this year. Unfortunately, just was not able to get it done, but Ryan Blaney in third, a great comeback for him. Fourth, we had Christopher Bell, and fifth, Alex Bowman, a very strong number 48 this weekend. Kind of shocked with the speed they had, considering the results he's had at this track have not been great the past 4 races. A really good result for a driver who's gotten a lot of just uncertainty through social media this week. His future has been in question, which is crazy considering that his contract situation has been known publicly for a long time, that he is there at Hendrick Motorsports through 2026. So I have a whole video out about that. But Alex Bowman with a great week and a great result. Not a win, but a top 5 that will absolutely help him with his playoff standings. In 6th, Tyler Reddick, a great comeback after making contact with Carson Hocevar on pit road, having to fix the car a little bit, so a good result for him. 7th, Kyle Busch. 8th, Chase Elliott. 9th, William Byron, a good result for him. And 10th, Austin Cindric, like I said, rebounding to get a top 10 finish. So how do these results translate over to our points situation? Well, Joey Logano, he doesn't need to worry. He's locked into the round of 12. So let's look at Ryan Blaney, who is the highest in points amongst those playoff drivers in the playoff grid. Then Christopher Bell. Tyler Reddick, the regular season champion, is plus 33 to the good. I want to go down this list a little bit and look at Kyle Larson. Again, he was ranked first. He was seeded first in these playoff standings going into Atlanta. He's leaving only 15 points above that cutoff line in 10th. You look at Denny Hamlin, as we talked about, had a conservative strategy for this race. He's only leaving this race above the cutoff line by 2 points, which is not ideal. Ty Gibbs is above that cutoff line now, but only by, I guess, 0, tied with Brad Keselowski, who was -0 under that cutoff line. So there's definitely a lot to pick apart there, considering that this race kind of just sets the tone for the round of 16, and it kind of makes these drivers' beds as we go into the rest of these races of 2024. So hopefully some of these drivers can pick it up at Watkins Glen, but I also know, looking at the drivers in the playoffs, a lot of them struggle at road courses, so the hole that they dug themselves at Atlanta could further going into Watkins Glen. Overall, though, with this race, what would I rate it above or below the yellow line? I thought it was fun. I don't really have a lot to say about it. Stages 1 and 2 were intense racing, obviously, but we didn't see kind of like the 3-wide, 4-wide racing that we saw earlier in the year. Of course, when we got to stage 3, that all changed. And even, like, I think Eric Jones was just the instigator of a lot of that 3 or 4-wide racing. Same with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. They made this race really fun from start to finish. But of course, when you have a track like Atlanta to start the playoffs, it's going to be a fun race regardless. I'm going to give it an 87%, which is absolutely above that yellow line. So what did you think of this race? Let me know in the comments below. And is there anything about this race that I didn't talk about in this video that you want me to touch up on during the week? Also, let me know in the comments below. And with that, we are done with this episode of Above the Yellow Line. For more NASCAR news, make sure to go to TobyChristieCom. And of course, for more from us here, go to AboveTheYellowLine.com. A little bit of a PSA. Our live stream this week will be on a Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. Make sure you do not miss it to talk all things Atlanta, NASCAR news, and previewing Watkins Glen. So we hope to see you there. But thank you all so much for watching this episode of Above the Yellow Line. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're not, and share this with your friends and family. I appreciate your support, and until next time, I'll see ya. Bye.